So my name is Samba Baldeh. I am an immigrant from the Western African nation of the Gambia. I've lived in Madison, Wisconsin for all my American life, which is about 20 years now. I live on the far east side of the city. And so in 2014 was when I first ran for city council. And April of 2015, I was elected to represent District 17. Late last year, our senator decided not to run. And so Melissa Surgeon, who was representing District 48, actually still representing District 48, decided to run for the Senate seat. So I decided to explore the assembly seat. And so I put an exploratory committee, and here we are today. I am running for Assembly District 48.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you're running for District 40, yes. So yeah, my name is Peter German, he, him, his. I'm the co-chair of Our Wisconsin Revolution, or Dane County, Our Wisconsin Revolution. And then Aisha, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Aisha Mo, and I am on the steering committee for OWR Dane County.
All right, well, nice meeting all of you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. All right, we'll jump right in. So do you support publicly funded elections?
So I think elections should be funded by people. I don't believe in corporations, like the senator once said, corporations are people also. I don't believe in that. I think if we have to have a fair democracy, a democracy that is representative of the people, by the people, for the people, people must fund the elections. So that is my stand with regards to elections funding.
All right, thank you. Do you favor extending the time frame to vote at the polls during elections to a minimum of 2 weeks ahead of the election date?
So voting is very fundamental in any democratic process. So I support every effort to make sure that every American get the opportunity to vote, whether that is 2 weeks or longer than 2 weeks. But I think every American should be given the opportunity, the space, the time to vote in any election, whether that is local, national, or county level. Every American should vote. And I think if we have nothing to hide, or if we are not afraid of the electorates, why is it that we are doing all this legislation to really prevent people from having easy access to voting? So I am all for everything for people to vote.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And then what model or plan do you prefer for redistricting?
So I would prefer a committee that is comprised of citizens, independent, who are not political. I think we owe it to residents or at least our constituents to determine how the district should be mapped. We shouldn't leave this to politicians to do. Obviously, the Republicans are really crazy in terms of how they gerrymander. But Democrats also do it. You know, I mean, to whoever controls definitely try to play the game to their advantage. And so to be fair to everybody, it should go to a citizen panel as opposed to a Republican control or a Democratic or however the combination is. Politicians should be out of it. And so let's give it to fair-minded and independent-minded people who has no political interest in the process, but at least to make the playing field fair.
Thank you very much.
What are your top 3 legislative priorities, and what will you do to move them through the legislature?
So I think we can all attest to the fact that there's a need for healthcare for everyone in this country. America is the richest country in the whole planet. And so therefore my top priority is to make sure that every American has access to healthcare. So how do we do that? Expand budget care, for example, in the state of Wisconsin. So healthcare is top priority. Next to that is bringing back the economy. Obviously, if we can bring Medicare funds from the federal government, that will lead to a lot of employment opportunities. And so the economy is in tatters right now with COVID and all the things that are happening around the country. My top priority is to make sure that we bring back the economy, work with the farmers. We are a farming state, a dairy land, to make sure that they get back on their feet and be able to produce the food that we eat and all this kind of stuff. The third priority will be basically what I would call criminal justice reform. We obviously know what is going on around the country, and so also how this is disproportionately against people of color. And so that will be my third priority. But obviously there are other things that I really think we should look at. Education, we need our kids to graduate. If they are not graduating, then we have a problem. That is what leads to all the problems that we are having right now with regards to the disproportionate incarceration of people of color, particularly Black people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So yeah, in the emergence from this pandemic, would you support state-level economic hardship payments directly to residents? And then what would be your top components that you believe should be in such a bill?
Repeat the second part.
What would you believe? What do you believe should be like the top components in a bill that would make these payments to citizens?
So I think obviously we should do everything possible to make sure that businesses are not filing bankruptcies, so that remain viable. And so I would be willing to work with legislators to make sure that at least businesses have access to funds that will help them open their doors. I know also it is important as part of that process to make sure that people are not evicted, people are not losing their homes. And so I will also advocate for funding that would help people while they're unemployed to stay in their homes or their apartments. So at least that way, you know, we are not sending people into the street. But it is important that we invest in the businesses. Obviously, I am more of a minority or small business guy than corporations. I think corporations have enough money to bring themselves back, but obviously everything should be at the table to make sure that the economy is up and running again, and everybody have a fair shot at it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. How will you guarantee housing to citizens? How will you deal with the financial situation of those facing eviction because of this pandemic? And what specific solutions do you propose?
So right now, there's about $10 million that is allocated for eviction-related issues. So I will continue to advocate to make sure that the state have money for people who have no access to employment. Right now, I just read yesterday on the newspaper that some people who file for unemployment, I think there are about 700,000-800,000 unemployment claims that are not paid. That is not acceptable. And I know a good number of these issues are coming from the Republican government when Scott Walker was there. But that is not an excuse now to say that people who are unemployed should not get their benefits. So I will do everything possible to make sure that people who are unemployed get the benefits that they deserve. But also small businesses to make sure that they keep employing their staff so they can have income.
Awesome, thank you. And then will you fight for a single-payer healthcare system at the state level? And would you support a federal single-payer healthcare system? So
I would support the expansion of Medicaid. I don't know it is realistic right now to have a single payer, but that is what I would be interested in. Like, America is the richest country in this world. So to see Americans, I came from a third world country where anytime I was sick, I mean, the healthcare system is not as advanced as what you find in America or something. But anytime I was sick, I wouldn't think about how much I'll pay at the hospital. I just get up and try and see a doctor. Sometimes the line may be long, but I still will see a doctor and they'll tell me what they think is wrong with me. In the richest country on planet Earth, I see no reason why I should not go to hospital with the fear that I may be bankrupt. So we cannot let that happen. We cannot let people, for example, our veterans, go to wars protecting us so we can live life comfortably, to come back home and have no access to healthcare or live in the streets. So I am all for everything that can give people access to healthcare, whether you call that single payer or not. I don't know single payer is realistic right now, but I do know the expanse of Medicaid is realistic. The funds are there. The federal government, the Affordable Care Act allocated those funds. So let's expand that and make sure at least the citizen or the residents of Wisconsin have access to healthcare.
Thank you. Will you pass workers' rights laws helping those who are forced to return to work, but who risk infection from COVID-19? Absent the equivalent of a single-payer system, will you push the state to guarantee medical coverage through Badger Care for those affected in this way?
Yeah, so COVID-19 is not our making. It came about, we don't know. I mean, it's claimed to came from China, but it's a pandemic. It could have come from anywhere in the world. So people who catch it and has no access to healthcare, again, goes back to this country being the richest country on earth. Why should we not be able to treat those people? Why should everything should be about profit and loss? We are human beings. The person that you save could be the next president of the United States. The person you save could be the biggest innovator the next time he's alive or something. So let's invest on our people. And not always should we talk about profit or lack of it. So I'll be a big supporter of supporting any and everybody who lost their job as a result of COVID, and anybody who need medical treatment as a result of COVID.
Thank you very much. So the next one is a little bit of a lightning round. You can just indicate your support, yes or no, for the individual proposals here, if you'd like. All right, so do you support the propositions outlined in Campaign Zero, which includes ending broken windows policing?
Say that again.
Do you support the propositions outlined in Campaign Zero, which includes ending broken windows policing?
Broken window policing?
Mm.
Yeah, like Michael Bloomberg style. It makes things look pretty, and then crime will go down.
Mm-hmm. So I am all for a criminal justice system that is fair to everybody. If that means obviously the system will prevent people from going to jail, give them a path to being productive members of the society, that's what I will support.
Oh, yeah. Increased community oversight, yes or no? Of the police.
So police reform is a bigger picture. I will not go into, yes, I support oversight, I don't support it. I am for bringing everybody at the table. Let's have a discussion about how we police our community. And let's bring in ideas as to what is best for us to trust each other so that the community trusts the police and the police know that, you know, they are there to service the community, not to go and intimidate them or anything of that nature. So that is the route I would take. I am not going to fall in for funding, no funding and all this kind of stuff. I want people to sit at the table, look at the problems and come up with solutions. That could include so many other stuff. So, but I'm not going to go into this, you know, buzzwords around support, no support, community policing and all that. My approach is that let's meet and sit and talk about these issues. We know there are problems with police brutality and all this kind of stuff. I mean, there are bad elements within the police department. There are bad elements all over the place. How do we weed those out? Also, I know there's a problem with training. How do we make sure that these police officers are trained enough? In any professional world that you live in, there's what they call continued education. So everybody, every once in a while, you go to learn something. So you better yourself within your domain and all that. So that is what I am in support of.
Fair enough. Then do you want to just go into the next question, Isha?
Samba, I just wanted to ask, did you understand, we have a list of questions that are yes, no, and response. Mm-hmm. Do you want us to ask you all of the questions and have you give a response, even if the response is not yes or no? Or do you want us to move on to the next question that's about more in general about policing?
Yep, so you can ask the yes or no question in a greater context. I will address them at once. I'll not go one at a time, yes, no, but I'll give you my general approach to those yes or no questions.
Okay, then Peter, I say, why don't you ask the rest of the questions, and Samba, you can respond to it, and then we'll move on to this specific conversation about defunding the police or supporting the police or whatever.
Right.
What do you think, Peter?
Sure, yeah. All right, then next will be, so what's your opinion on use of force?
So like I said, I've addressed the police part of it. I am not going to get into use of force, not use of force. What I will do is to bring everybody at the table. Let's talk about our police issues and find solutions to them. And so I am not going to go into fun or fun. Let's talk about the issues. What I know is that there's a problem with policing, particularly policing of people of African descent, Black people. And so I would like to come to the table and have a conversation. How do we better do that? How do we weed out this police department of the few bad elements that they have that is giving them this tainted name of bad policing and all that kind of stuff? Police brutality is real. I am a Black person who live in a society where I have never gone more than a year without being pulled over by police. And when I talk to my colleagues at work or other places who are white, generally they'll tell me when I was going to college, I was drunk and then I was pulled over by police, or we were acting goofy and I was pulled over by police. But for me, that is a daily or at least a yearly occurring things. So there is a problem. There's a systematic issue in the policing and law enforcement generally that needs a serious conversation. It shouldn't go by these buzzwords, community policing, fund defund. I think we have to sit and find out where really do we need to focus our resources if it comes to funding? Do we really need police to respond to somebody who's having a mental breakdown, for example? Do we need the police to respond to, I think my neighbor is not home for the past 10 days or so. So these are things that we need to look at. What actually should the police respond to, and what should we send other segment of our government to be responsible of?
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. It's like, would you like to go through any more of the individual proposals? I can quick put them in the chat and you can quick look at them if you'd like, or would you just like to move on to more general questions?
Yep, so the yes and no, I think I've addressed them if they have to do with the police or law enforcement, yeah.
Okay, okay. So this next question is more in general. Will you support either increasing, leveling, decreasing, or eliminating funding for the police?
Again, these are some of the options. I know, like I just stated earlier, let's look at what the police are doing. Is this all that they should do? If it is not, if there are other people who are better served or other departments who are well equipped to do some of the work that the police are doing, let's move it outside of the police domain and let those people do that. A good example is when somebody is dealing with a mental health crisis. Is that best use of the police time? No. But also training. Should we invest more on training the police, or we shouldn't? So my personal take is that the police need to have continuous education, so they understand the people that they are policing. And therefore, will I put more funding on training? Yes. But will I put more funding on police to come and police somebody who has a mental problem? No, I will not do that. How about equipment? I do not believe police should carry all this military style weaponry to go and deal with a simple situation in a neighborhood. So all these things are really, I mean, I don't like politicizing things. And for me to say yes, funding, no funding, is to politicize it without sitting at the table and having a really, really crucial conversations around these issues. I think that is what will get us to a better place as opposed to politicizing it, where everybody's just wanting to score political points. That is not my interest. My interest is to make this community better. My interest is to build trust between our communities of color particularly and law enforcement. So that is what I will advocate, and however that means, if that means, you know, defunding a good part of the police, particularly if it comes to their equipment, then let's look at those options.
All right. This next question is, as a state representative, in a situation where a police officer in your jurisdiction has been filmed killing someone and that they have stopped or arrested, how would you respond?
So, you know, honestly, it's difficult in the moment to have a strong opinion about a shooting. What you may see on a film may not be the whole story, but let's take an example of what happened to Floyd in Minnesota. It was very clear without any other evidence that what the guy did was wrong. So in a situation like that, I will call for those police officers to be fired. I will call for the police department to be investigated in terms of how they run their operation, just like what happened in Madison when we had OWR contracted to look at how process and procedures of the police department. So that is what I will do. I will also reach out to the families and find a way to console them and make them know that this is wrong, but as their representative, I'll do everything possible to correct it. So that will be my approach.
Okay. And lastly, you've spoken a lot about your position on policing and criminal justice reform. Please list any other propositions that you will fight for.
So like I said, education is very important to me. I think the reason why particularly people of color, kids end up in prison is lack of access to good education from kindergarten all the way to grade 12. And so I will do everything to provide that opportunity to go to school. I think it is also important that daycare services are provided to kids of color. And when during my time in the city council as the president, I advocated to increase the budget for our daycare, child care department within the city. These are very important issues that I think we should endeavor to advance. Housing is another issue. African Americans in this country, if it comes in this state, are last in terms of home ownership. If you have no wealth, there's no way you can prosper in this economy. So access to housing, in my opinion, is important. So I will work hard to make sure that people who are buying homes have access to down payment, but also to fair deals with regards to buying home. In many cases, you know, I may have an 800 credit score or maybe 750 or something, but yet, because I, as a person of color, I'm not very educated about housing, I may still paying a high interest rate. And that alone can be in the tens of thousands of dollars. So I will advocate for fair housing. I will advocate for anything that would help, particularly people of color, access housing to own homes.
Thank you.
Are you muted, Peter?
Thank you very much. So the next one is like a little bit more of a sort of personal history. So who did you support in the Democratic Party presidential primary this year, and why?
Samba, interview. Hey, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So who did you support in the Democratic Party presidential primary in 2020? Why, and then when did you publicly start supporting them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so initially my candidate, and I endorsed him, was Bernie Sanders. He was my candidate, so obviously right now, my candidate is Joe Biden. But why did I endorse Bernie Sanders? I aligned with him on education. Again, this is the richest country on planet Earth. I don't think our youth, our young people, should choose, do I go to college and live with $180,000 debt, or not go to college and be a criminal? That should not be the option. So Bernie Sanders was very clear on what he wanted to do with regards to education. He was also very clear with regards to, you talk about single payer system. That's exactly what he advocated. If it was for real, I will support it, but right now it is not. I think if Bernie Sanders was the president, that would have been a reality. So healthcare was also another reason that I supported him. But he was also very clear on these issues of what we are talking about now, diversity and inclusion, and the disparities between people of color, particularly people of African descent, and their colleagues, their counterparts. So he was very clear. But any other person else, I will support to get rid of Donald Trump. Right now, I support Joe Biden 100%, and I will do any and everything possible to make sure that he's the next president of the United States.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is your analysis of the Tony Evers administration or the state legislature's handling of the COVID-19 crisis in Wisconsin, including its handling of the process leading up to the April 7th election?
So Tony's administration is at a difficult spot. They're the executive with basically no legislative power. At least from a democratic perspective. So I understand that no matter what he wants to do, the good thing is there's no veto-proof majority. But the legislature is controlled by the Republicans. I would say if he had the control of the legislature, I would have said that they should have done much better. But under the current circumstances, I think this is the best they could do. And so, but right now, people are hurting. People applied for unemployment since November, December. Up to now, some of them cannot get their unemployment paid. That is unacceptable. But again, what can Tony do? This system was destroyed. Myself, I fill out application for people who were applying for unemployment. Up till date, they cannot get their unemployment. The system told them, when I was doing the in red, highlighted in red, that you don't have to go to the Department of Workforce Development to start looking for jobs and all that kind of stuff. And their denial was exactly based off of the same message that they said you don't have to do. So there is a problem there. But again, my hope is that as we go into these elections, that we are able to understand that if we continue, whether it is rural Wisconsin or urban Wisconsin or whatever, that if we continue to elect some of these Republicans, there's no way we can change the status quo. So under the circumstances, I think they did okay. But obviously, I would have preferred that people are not suffering because of lack of employment benefit support and all this other stuff. You are muted again, Peter.
You get better at that. But yeah, thank you very much. So next, switching gears a little bit, are you supportive of the BDS, which is the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm familiar with it. I know Scott Walker did something around it. What I would say is that that is more of a federal issue, and I don't want to bring in local politics into what happened in Israel and that part of the world. What I would say in general terms is that I think the two countries should coexist and love each other and know that there's nothing that is going to change in this world where Israel is going to move to a different part of that place and then Palestine moving to a different part. So it is important that they coexist peacefully. But I will leave that to the federal government. Is more of a federal issue than a local issue. If the federal government say no Wisconsinite can do business anywhere else, that is up to them. And if they say Wisconsinite can do business all over the world, then that is up to them. Wisconsin cannot override the state law. So I would not like to get into those kind of politics. I am currently focused on really what is happening in the state.
Okay, thank you. Sort of tangential to that, do you believe that protesting is a form of speech and therefore we have the right to do so, including types of protesting such as BDS and the anti-pipeline movements should not be punished?
Yeah, so again, I will not go into the Israel situation and all that, but I do believe in this country, people have the right to peacefully protest. That is part of our civil right. That is part of our rights as Americans. This is the country where people have always come out to advocate for what they believe. As long as it is peaceful, I am all for it. How people do that is up to them, but I am for peaceful protest. People should come out there and express their feelings. And again, I am not going into anything that is federal government related.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next is sort of more technical question. So list any unions that have already endorsed in this race, and which labor endorsements are you currently seeking?
So obviously, I would like all unions to endorse me, but I am proud and happy, overly excited to let you know that the Service Employees International Union has endorsed me, and this includes the healthcare workers and obviously SEIU local one. I am also proud to say that I am endorsed by Wisconsin Education Association Council. So these are very strong and powerful unions that has come out to endorse me, and so I am very appreciative of that. But I think in my work at the City Council, I have been very cordial and friendly and have a very good working relationship with unions. And so any one of them who feel the comfort to endorse me, I appreciate that. I have interviewed with a few of them. Some said they will endorse after the primaries. Others, I don't know when. But I am very proud, happy to announce this to SEIU and also the Wisconsin Education Association Council endorsing me. So I am proud to say that.
All right, thank you so much. This next question is a series of questions, which I will ask, and they're just factual, okay? Regarding fundraising, how much have you raised for this race to date?
So I don't know the exact numbers right now, but I think total we are close to 35,000, but I don't know what the number is exactly right now. Okay. Our target from the beginning was to raise between 45,000 and 60,000 by the time we go to the primaries. And so I think we are doing very well. I can't quote you the numbers exactly. I didn't get a chance to speak with the treasurer to know exactly, but I think we are in the 30,000s plus, if not 40. So we are doing very well, obviously.
Who are your top 3 donors?
So these are individuals. I don't know if it is okay that I name them, but I have a good number of individuals who have donated the maximum.
Okay. What percentage of your total of that 35,000 are from these top donors, or from those 3 top donors?
So I would say maybe about 8%.
Okay. How much of the total is strictly from small individual donors of $50 or less?
So the average contribution the last time I checked was about $78.
Okay. And then would you be able to go, and then next we're going to go through these same questions in regarding your previous election. Do you know how much money you raised in the last election you ran in?
So my first election as the city council, I raised in excess of $10,000. This last election, I think I raised in excess of $7,000, $8,000. So I have been there, raising funds. When I was running the first time for city council, yes, I was told if I can raise $3,000, I will be a formidable candidate. I end up raising in excess of 10,000, 12,000, I think. So again, this campaign going into it, I couldn't imagine really how people in the wake of COVID and all the things that are happening, that people will have the comfort to give money. But I am very, very appreciative of, we have over 200 donors so far, which is huge, I mean, in my opinion, and they range from $10 to the maximum of $1,000. And so a good number of them are also repeating. So I am really, really very appreciative of the people who despite what is going on in the country and around them, are able to find time to at least donate.
Who were your top 3 donors for your last election?
So again, these are individual people that I didn't confer with to say it was okay to put their name in the public domain. But again, these are people who live in the district who max out for the local city elections.
And what percentage of your total in your last election was from the top 3 donors?
Probably maybe 4 or 5%. Good number of those donations were very small, in the range of $25, $35, but they accumulated to a lot of funds.
Understood. And lastly, in your last election, how much of the donations were from small individual donors of less than $50.
So I'd say about 75% of those donations were small donations.
Thank you so much. I know those are a lot of questions. Thank you so much for answering them.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation with you.
Samba, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
There's actually two more questions. Peter's got one more and I've got one more, and then we'll be done, okay?
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, do you support the legalization of recreational cannabis, including the expungement of all, cannabis-related charges and the release of everybody currently serving time in prison for cannabis charges?
So obviously we all know what is happening around the country. Our next door neighbor, Illinois, legalizes it for recreation and also for medical purposes. Why aren't we doing it? It's one country. You can drink alcohol in any part of this country and nothing happens to you. If marijuana is found to be okay to use for medical purposes and recreational purposes, why can't we do that? And so if we can do that, why is it that we should not expunge people who are criminalized as a result of using it? So that is my stand.
And then lastly, do you have paid staff or consultants working on your campaign? And if so, what percentage of your campaign funding goes towards paying staff or consultants?
Yes, I do have paid staff, and I think the percentage that goes to them is about 4 or 5%.
All right, thank you. That was the end now, the real end, not the fake end.
All right, I'm here. If you remember or if you get some other questions come about. Yes. Not a problem, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and answering all these questions.
Yep, all
I know
right.
it must be a very busy time, but yeah.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you, Peter. And again, thank you, Aisha, for the interview. I really appreciate it.